A warm welcome to you all, and welcome in particular to our Entrepreneurs Week 2020. We've had a superb week of events this week, and I know that some of you have participated in those as well. For those that don't know me, my name is Siobhan Jones and I'm a litigation partner here at Farrers. I also coordinate the luxury sector initiatives that we do, and so I'm going to be chairing the session today. At Farrers, our focus is acting for private businesses, family businesses, entrepreneurs and investors. And so this week really is quite key in our calendar. And if it helps, please do go and have a look at our microsite, www.entrepreneursweek.co.uk, because there's much more there about what we've been doing and the discussions that have been had this week. And hopefully you'll find that very helpful. Also, you can join the conversation on social media, as always these days. Please use the hashtag EW2020. And last but not least, a final plug for our final session of the week at 5 o'clock today. It's an hour of cocktails and networking. I think there are prizes as well, donated by some of our clients. So if you have an hour, please do log into that. By way of housekeeping, a couple of points. I think all of us now are quite familiar with the laws of Zoom. So if you could please switch off mics and videos, apart from our panelists, of course, that would help us enormously. If you have any questions, please use the chat box. We are going to try and incorporate those into the discussion today. I'm very, very conscious that we have quite a full discussion, and we may not get to all of them, but please do send those through. And finally, we're going to record the session, and that will be available on our microsite as well if you'd like to catch up later. So to get started in this session, we're going to look at the importance of innovation across different aspects of luxury businesses and the part innovation plays in building resilience in those businesses. And I was reviewing some of the key points that came out of our programme last year in 2019. And one point struck me, one sort of quote struck me as being quite on point here, and it's this: the fittest will continue to get stronger, and our younger brands will continue to rise up. We'll probably say goodbye to the retailers and brands that fail to innovate. So our aim today is to shine a light on how innovation can also help build resilience into the fabric of a business. And we're going to look at that in three areas. We're going to look at innovation in digital technology. We're going to look at innovation in the context of the customer experience and personalization. And finally, we're going to look at it in the context of sustainability. Whilst COVID and the lockdown have, of course, been prevalent in everybody's mind, we're trying not to make that the thrust of the discussion today, but I don't think it can be really ignored, because I think it's quite relevant in the way that it's highlighted examples of success and examples of failure in businesses, and we can use that, I think, to shine a light on some of what we say. So the key takeaways that we hope are going to come out of today are going to be flowing from the panellists' experiences and thoughts and views, and hopefully what we'll get is how we can improve resilience, both in terms of the risks that we associate with the exceptional economic events like those that we've seen recently, but also those in the natural life cycle of a business. So without further ado, let me please introduce the panellists for today. Sonu Shivdasani co-founded Soneva, and I think it's fair to say is a true pioneer of intelligent, sustainable luxury in the travel sector. The importance of customer experience and sustainability has been embedded throughout the development of Soneva and all of its initiatives, a company really quite ahead of the curve in many respects in that regard. Sonu, can I just ask you to share a little of your journey and inspiration by way of brief introduction to those listening?
Yes, no, thank you. Well, Siobhan, it's a pleasure to be on this panel. It's a great honor. Thank you. I graduated from Oxford. During my Oxford time, my wife and I would travel to the Maldives on occasions. We loved the destination. We felt there was so much we could add to it. At the time, the Maldives was very much a mass market, unsustainable destination. And so We ended up leasing an island a couple of years later, built our first resort over the years, built up a very successful brand called Six Senses, which we sold in 2012, and then focused on Soneva, where we're both the owner and operator of our hotel. So Six Senses was growing through managing other people's hotels, and we've now focused on being both owner and operator of our hotels. Our core purpose is imaginative and engaging slow life. We're essentially offering our guests luxuries whilst minimizing our impact on the planet, and also enhancing their health. And we do that by questioning and challenging what is a luxury, because it's a misused word, especially in the 21st century, where the context of the successful has completely changed. And hence our philosophy for our customers is this idea of inspiring a lifetime of rare experiences.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Sonu. Turning now to the new West End company. This has been pivotal as a platform in driving regeneration and innovation in the West End over the past 15 years on behalf of its bid members and partners. And I think will be known to many of you that are listening. Through collaboration, the new West End company bridges the gap between businesses, property owners, investors and the public sector to develop a vision to make London's West End and Mayfair the world's first choice for visitors, businesses and investors. So I'm delighted that Jace Tyrrell, the Chief Executive, is here today. Jace, perhaps a word or two from you to outline your role and that of the new West End company for those perhaps that are not so familiar.
Thank you, and what a great introduction, actually. So you've taken most of it from me. But I have to say, yeah, it's a great privilege to represent 600 businesses in W1 and Mayfair. So 400 occupiers, hoteliers, restaurants and retail, right across Prada to Primark and everything in between. Probably Prada is more our conversation today. And also 200 property owners and very diverse group, from private families right through to the great estates and the propcos. So as you say, our role is really to bring all those interests together to continue to promote the commercial heart of London, but also internationally and domestically. And at the moment, obviously, support these businesses through a very challenging time, but an eye on to the next 3, 5 and 10 years, and what the West End and Mayfair is really going to repurpose to in the decade ahead. So really interesting topic, obviously, for our discussion today on the panel. Thank you. Fantastic.
Thank you, Jace. And finally, a warm welcome to Andrea, Koday-Voros and Julia Carrick, OBE, the co-founders of Carrick ISO Luxury. ISO is a really unique, cutting-edge, member-only lifestyle app. It provides a platform which enables members and brands to connect and really quite reinvents the foundations of traditional luxury shopping through using the app technology, and has established a community of brands and buyers. So again, it's very much a brand that sees the experience of the customer as central to its vision. Andrea, Julia, could you just briefly please give us an outline of your backgrounds and the inspiration behind ISO?
Okay. Shall I go first?
Sure.
Thank you, first of all, very much for inviting us to join the panel. It's wonderful and really appreciate that. So I'm Julia Carrick. I'm founder of the FT How to Spend It magazine, Great British Brands, former CEO of Warple. Throughout my career, I've kind of innovated, led and lobbied for the British luxury industry. I've spent my working life surrounded by luxury and enjoy every aspect of it, the innovation, the craftsmanship, the talent and the entrepreneurialism of today's luxury brands. I'm passionate about the industry. It's crucial for our economy and job creation. And that's really why, together with Andrea, we came together and founded ISO Luxury. As you sort of explained, we're a member-only lifestyle app, and we connect discerning UK and international audiences, shoppers, with globally sought after fashion houses, luxury labels and cultural and sporting organisations. And we really encourage tactile shopping at the brands, and we are really focusing on driving footfall to the stores. And of course, in this climate, it's ever more important to bring everybody together to do that.
Super.
Hi,
Andrea.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's lovely to meet you all and to be here. So I co-founded Knightsbridge Property and Lifestyle Management, a luxury concierge and property management company back in 2014. We service high net worth and ultra high net worth individuals, look after properties, arrange travel, provide unique access to events and luxury items. This is my other venture. And funny enough, we have sent several clients to Soneva before, and they had a fantastic time always. We had an amazing feedback. So it's a destination we actually, at Knightsbridge Management, highly recommend to our clients. We lucky for the both of us with Julia, we wanted to begin a new venture that would allow us to explore luxury in all of its forms, hence creating ISO Luxury. And the rest of the introduction about the app you already know.
Thank you so much. That's great. So let's kick off with the first of our three areas of discussion: innovation in digital technology. Can I ask, please, a question for you all in turn? What are the continuing and emerging innovations in technology in your industries, and how is that technology being used to help embed resilience? So perhaps can I start off, Sonu, with your thoughts on that?
Good. I think I'll be quite quick. So Soneva's all about these remote locations, remote but accessible, one island, one resort, barefoot. We promote barefoot luxury, hence no news, no shoes. So we're very much about high touch, low tech. But that said, in terms of the guest experience, because I touched upon the fact that our success has come from really thinking about what is luxury and questioning it, because the context of our guests has changed over the years. Instead of being the Landridge gentry, they're now urban, and some of the things that were taken for granted in the past are now very rare, whether it's fresh air, fresh food, space, privacy. So we're all about inspiring a lifetime of rare experiences by simply just walking barefoot on the beach, having that salad that was plucked from the garden that morning, watching a movie, where the stars are not just on the screen, etc. So that's what we promote. But at the same time, we can certainly call upon technologies to support us. So, for example, the website is a key shop window for us. And especially now in these times, we found that 60% of our sales are now direct. So it's become even more important that the website as our flagship store, and we're very conscious of that, and we're trying our hardest to make it as easy as possible and as friendly as possible. We obviously, to communicate, we're using webinars and things like that, and we now developed an app for our compendiums as well. So it helps a lot because we have a lot of rich content in our hotel. So you can spend 14 nights there and not dine in the same place. Fill up your schedule with things to do and not do everything that's possible. So the digital compendium, the app, makes it so much easier for our guests to sift through all that content, especially these guests who are quite hectic and busy and just want to de-stress and far niente and read a book a bit. It's easy for them to just make sure they don't miss anything. So I think that's been quite helpful. Technology certainly is very good in allowing us to perfect the experience. It's at Soneva, it's one size fits one, not one size fits all. So each guest's requirements are different, and so technology can be used to support us in being more efficient in tailor making, collecting preferences, etc. So I think all of that is really important. And now, in what COVID has prompted us to think about is to think about the fact that we have incredible talent and resources that create these incredible experiences for our guests in a sustainable manner, and to see how we can use these resources to generate sales beyond our island resorts. And that's where I think technology will help us.
Yeah, no, it really is proving key, and that probably falls neatly then to Andrea, to ISA. Obviously, the app technology is essential to your company. So the same question perhaps to you.
Sure. Firstly, big brands have invested in VR, virtual reality, and AR, augmented technology and reality to build resilience within their communities before. As an example, French luxury brand Christian Dior has launched its virtual reality store in Paris on its Champs-Élysées location. And it offers consumers the chance to navigate the Dior boutique and discover products. It's a fantastic innovation. Another example, Burberry recently teamed up with video live streaming service Twitch to air the Spring-Summer 2021 fashion show. And this virtual experience allowed viewers to interact with both the brand and each other. And coming back to the store space, which is where ISOLuxury is at, really the aim here now, I believe, is to create a physical store that has the digital capabilities to create interactive experiences. And one of the main reasons for that is that affluent millennial and Gen Z customers now represent over 30% of the luxury spend. And as they are born digital, they have different expectations. They need an experience that is personalized and seamlessly integrated both online and offline. So the art is really here to combine the new technology with the brand storytelling as well, and that is going to create extreme value for the brands. For us at ISOLuxury, we continue to innovate. As you may know, our main aim is to drive traffic to the stores, but with the lockdown, we also had to sort of revisit our strategies around this, and we are now developing and shortly releasing an online purchasing tool via the app, and that is going to allow the members to receive the same great benefits when purchasing online through this smart and sophisticated technology we are developing with the app. And we continue to drive the traffic to the stores via our VIP appointment function, allowing our ultra high net worth and high net worth ISO members to create VIP appointments and visit the boutiques and shop safely.
Thank you. And it's obviously very clear how there is still such a strong link between technology on the one hand and physical real estate. So Jace, obviously a question for you. What does it look like from your side?
Yeah, I mean, it's well commented, isn't it? What's happened in 6 months was 10 years, and probably retail pre-COVID, as we know, was going through a structural almighty shift, this pronounced shift to online, this purpose-driven approach to sustainable products and sustainable lifestyle. So, it's only turbocharged what that has meant for the industry per se. I think from our perspective, looking at technology, 3 areas. One is customer and colleagues. So how during COVID and purely on safety and security, how brands and businesses have used technology to really communicate and work on their resilience plans as organizations as well. And really interesting, and this is not a luxury brand, but Uniqlo have now changed all their UK stores where there are no actually staff on till point. It's all done digitally through technology and AI, and you take it and you package yourself. So we've seen this in other sectors, haven't we, like airlines and others. So I just wonder with luxury, actually, because it is a high touch point, very personalized service, how that innovation and technology is going to work into that side of it. I think on property management, we're seeing a lot more of technology innovation used on how facilities management, property management. Obviously, because of COVID, we've had to work remotely. That will be very interesting how that works through. And I wonder also when we start to think about revaluations in this online retail world and how you value physical real estate, how digital and putting that P&L against margins on online and physical, and how that comes together when you're looking at turnover-based rents, how that's all going to play out. I don't have the answer today, but certainly it's a very live question, and maybe colleagues listening will have that. And then finally, as a district, we think about the West End and Mayfair. How can we bring the best of the physical into that digital customer experience and service? And our approach is we want to treat the West End and Mayfair like a 5-star hotel experience. So how do we use 5G and Wi-Fi, which sounds rather sort of last century now, but how do we bring in technology and digital into the physical environment to really enhance the customer experience?
Yeah, and as you say, the events of the last 3 to 6 months, perhaps they're acting as an accelerant of a trend that was already in motion, and it's going to be really interesting to see what the next 6 months to a year will look like. And Sonu, perhaps one for you. I mean, it's easy to see how technology has perhaps helped businesses during the past 6 months or so. Do you think that there were some businesses perhaps in the travel industry that were better placed than others to embrace that and to prove a little more successful in this hard climate?
Funny enough, the businesses that have succeeded during this crisis have been the smaller ones, the more agile ones, and they're also more flexible. So whilst you might find that the bigger operators might have big tech spends, they're a bit like giants. So you have these small agencies that are very good at communicating on social media. So in some markets, for example, in China, the travel brochure doesn't exist. It never has for the last 5 years. They're just using WeChat, and that gives them incredible flexibility. And you see that even now with certain markets like Russia have done very well, and there's they have that flexibility because they use WhatsApp for communicating. So they want quotes in WhatsApp, not by email. So we're seeing with other countries, the smaller agents are adapting, and they're more nimble and taking on these new technologies and using it to their advantage. And to build on what Andrea said, the VR, I think, is an important tool for agents and for resorts like us to communicate the experience remotely. So it's something we're adopting as well, and I think that will be very helpful. But in summary, to answer your question, I think the travel trade have those smaller ones, the mom and pop shops, have moved much quickly using social media, using Instagram, using WeChat, WhatsApp, depending on which countries they are, as tools to communicate with their clients. And they've been very effective. And so we've seen 60% now direct, whereas before it was the inverse. It was about 70-80% travel trade. And out of that travel trade that's remaining, it's the small agents, not the big operators.
Yeah, and agility, I think, has to be key around this. And I think, obviously, I think we've all seen it in the travel industry as to how that has impacted of late. And obviously that's going to be the same across many of the sectors. In the luxury sector and industry will not be immune to that either. Okay, so we touched upon it. So let's move on to perhaps the next section, which is how innovation is working within the customer experience and personalisation. And it's the way in which the customer is demanding more and better face-to-face interaction. And I'm going to start this off by looking at this in the context of bricks and mortar. So Jace, heading to you. I think, and again, I look back at last year's programme. Jace came in, and obviously you're on a panel last year for the bricks and mortar session. And out of that was a very interesting observation that the flagship remains an important tool for enabling a brand to broadcast its offering to the world. And flagships are also places for customers to experience a brand, not just to shop. They encapsulate the trend for rationalisation of retail real estate, a reduced number of stores, but more meaningful offerings. So we've seen that rationalisation and the less is more approach. So a couple of questions, I think, here. Will recent events accelerate that trend and the innovation that is there? And how important, this is a biggie probably, how important will stakeholder collaboration be? And I appreciate that's a session for itself, but I think it's an important one to mention here.
Good question. So I think obviously, there has been a fundamental shift on what is the physical store for. There's a boardroom around the world that doesn't think, what is our real estate strategy with our physical boutiques and our brands? And already we saw a rationalization. We're going to see it even more. I mean, we think, today there will be 30 to 40% fewer retailers that you see today on Bond, Oxford and Regent Street in the next 12 months to 2 years. So you're going to see a fundamental shift on ground floor and uses. Interesting, on Bond Street, there's actually 3 new brands opening in the next 3 months, So I think what you're going to see is a flight to those very core centres. Even in London, we'll see some rationalisation, between Mayfair, Knightsbridge and the, I guess, secondary sort of towns and streets around the capital, but also around the country. Curiously, though, it's interesting with lockdown, we've seen the rise of our local high streets again, haven't we? So that might be an interesting dynamic. But I think for luxury on that stage, on the global flagships, they'll want to be in the big cities. It will be an emporium, a statement of their brand. It will be an opportunity to test their services and products. And I think the challenge commercially is how you value that. And you really just can't take it on straight turnover. And how do you put a premium or a value? And then how do valuers, real estate valuers, the banks actually value the physical retail? So I think, not answering the question, just more putting the problem out there. It's something that's going to have to be thought about. But we're seeing it firsthand in the West End and Mayfair. It's playing out. It's playing out around other global cities around the world as well. But I think you'll see greater capital investment on the physical store when they work out its importance in the overall P&L offer to a business. Interesting, just as I finish up, there was a deal done last week on Savile Row where the landlord has taken a percentage of total P&L, from their wholesale, their online and their physical, as sort of putting their rent deal together. So I'm sure colleagues listening will have some more anecdotes around that happening, but interesting that that trend is being accelerated.
No, and I think you're right about that. My bread and butter work obviously is in the property industry, and the way we're seeing some of this moving is agreements being reached that are very much based on turnover and more imaginative ways in which that is being used to suit all parties, both owner and occupier. And really, collaboration is going to be key here. It's going to look very different when we come out, I'm sure, the other end, but we'll see what innovations are there. And turning
on the collaboration point, I should just say, obviously the relationship between landlord and tenant has fundamentally shifted, and I think those who take a long-term view and work will see better days ahead, I think, given how, I guess, dynamic at the moment it is, or how binary perhaps that relationship is. But I think organizations like ours, city centres, as we grapple beyond COVID to the sustainability agenda, future of our cities, residential community with colleagues at work in areas, you're going to see far more collaboration in that space than we've probably ever seen before, actually, and in terms of commerce and community coming together in big cities as well.
And hopefully, in a way, no doubt that the brands will push so that it enhances the experience of all the customers coming through in a way that we probably haven't seen before. And I know that in the West End and Mayfair, you're starting to see that in the context of open spaces as well. It is more of a destination. It's what the experience is going to be. So that no doubt is going to come through. And Sonu, turning again to the travel industry, I mean, this has really been quite prevalent for some time now, that the customer experience, and I know key to what you've been doing. Are you seeing more interest in that need for the bespoke service, the buying less but buying better, and what innovations are coming through there?
Right. I mean, it's difficult to tell. I mean, in the short term, at the moment, our experience is that our top villas are selling. It's the people coming in with private jets, spending. We have someone coming in a week's time. He booked last week, spending $450,000 with us in a month. So it's that type of booking at the moment because of the access challenges. Borders reopened mid-July. You have Qatar and Emirates flying in, so there are great airlines flying in with twice daily flights, and these are airlines that connect most of the world, but some people are a bit concerned. So what we found is the more wealthy in society, the more successful, are the ones that are booking and coming at the moment, because it's been that pragmatism, because we know with COVID, to an extent, it's the fear itself, to paraphrase FDR, that is the greatest fear of all at the moment. We've, over the last few months, we've learned how to deal with COVID. Initially lockdowns made a lot of sense because it was an unknown quantity, but now we know what it is. Our knowledge of treating it is improved exponentially to the point that the fatality rate is considerably less than most serious flus we've had in the past. So it's the fear itself that's causing this. And so some of our guests, and of course testing capacities improved, ways to treat it have improved dramatically when you think that, in the early days, when they did early autopsies in Italy, they died of blood coagulation, not the virus itself. So, you know, it was also, this is a byproduct of it, but not what they thought was the original, you know, going to be the cause of death. So, so I think these people are the wealthy are the ones who are more pragmatic. They take the risks and they're flying. So our experience at the moment is people are staying for longer as well, long stays, 2 months, 3 months, workation, you know, education as well. We have a lot of content. We have interesting characters in our resorts, job titles and job descriptions that support us with our sustainability goals. For example, we recycle 90% of our waste. So we have waste to wealth managers. We have mycologists who grow mushrooms, permaculturalists who take the symbiotic relationship of nature and create fantastic vegetables and salads for our guests, marine biologists, astronomers, glass blowers. We recycle all our glass in a glass factory with great glass. So we create this content for the children. So we have a bit of that happening at the moment where parents are bringing their children out and they're learning offline, you know, physically learning how to create compost from the cardboard and the food, etc. And the father's working and mother's enjoying herself. And so, so that's been our experience at the moment. And in terms of COVID and how it will impact us in terms of the trend, etc. in the medium term, I think in the medium term, it'll be better for us because Soneva's always been about considering the fact that there's greater urbanization. 10 years ago, we came to a point where the world was 50% in cities, living 50% of the population was in cities. By 2030, 70% of the world's population will be urban. So we have greater urbanization. And as I mentioned earlier, some of the things that were successful took for granted in the past, whether it's fresh air, fresh food, space, privacy, are at a huge premium when you're successful in living in an urban context. So I think COVID, what it has done is it's accentuated the limitations of urban life, these shortages and the things that are rare, and it denied the advantages of urban life, you know, restaurants, theatre, interacting with other people. So it just brought out the worst of cities and it made our context more attractive. So I think those trends will continue because if by 2030, 70% of the world's population are living in an urban context, then what we're offering, you know, bringing out the beauty of nature and bringing people back luxuriously back to nature and bringing out the beauty of what's in our environment in a way that's rare, whether it's a dolphin cruise or I said having watching a movie where the stars are on the screen or seeing the stars through one of the largest telescopes where we operate or having a shower and seeing the full moon at the same time. These are things that people will treasure. So so we see the demand growing, and funny enough, October will be where I am here at Soneva Fushi as an example, will be better than last year. In November, we've got double on the books as the same time last year, even though some of our traditional markets have restrictions, like in the UK, there's a 14-day quarantine. Fortunately, a lot of British guests are still making the decision to travel, but there are other countries where we're on the low risk list, and we're one of few countries which these nationalities can travel to. So we're seeing that pick up. I hope that answers your question.
No, it really does, and I think I think the interesting point there is it's the sort of the link between luxury and rarity, and you know what the last 6 months have shown, and the urbanization trend generally is that, you know, rarity obviously is going to mean rarity in experience more than anything else, and that's where I think the idea of true luxury is shifting slightly to do that. It's an interesting concept, I think.
I know that more than 60 to 70% of luxury spending is on experiences now because the garages are full and the cupboards are full. So I think that that trend will just potentially be accentuated further. Especially if people have less opportunities to show off their goods because they can't socialize to the same extent. It
really has, and again, perhaps been an accelerant in some ways as well. That really highlights that main trend. Andrea, obviously, ISO is all about personalisation. So from your point of view, are you seeing that as being more important than ever?
Yes, definitely. We see the concept of luxury being changed, and it's changing because our societal and cultural norms are and expectations are changing quicker than before. We think that while luxury once meant the most expensive or most well-known product, nowadays it's become more about creating an experience to remember that is focused on quality, value, and the theater of shopping. Our ISO Ultra VIP shoppers, we see them demanding exclusive products, limited editions, and they wish to experience the brands on a strictly bespoke basis. So that is why the ISO Luxury app offers limited editions and uber luxury items that can only be purchased through waitlists, and we have a concierge service that is expert at tracking down these rare items. So ultimately, the personalized online and in-store experience will definitely allow consumers to connect with the brand on a deeper level, and it's very much needed. A great example, again, Burberry, I'm referring to. They recently launched a so-called social retail store in Shenzhen, China, which is really interesting. They've done a collaboration with Tencent, which is a technology company. And as you walk through as a consumer to the store, you get an animal character that changes the more you physically and virtually interact with the product at the store. And that allows you to discover new characters and get access to exclusive menu items at the in-store cafe, and also receive personalized content along the way. So we strongly believe that businesses who fail to incorporate personalization into their strategy in the long term risk losing their customer base, and in turn definitely decrease their revenue. And again, I have to refer back to the millennials and the Gen Z generation who are going to be the main consumers of luxury goods. So luxury brands have to realize that there has to be a change and shift towards digital technology to stay in the game in the long run.
I think, and again, that links the search for rarity being seen as a prime luxury driver as well seems to be that, and I think going back to the flagship stores, the use of technology to enhance the experience of being in that store is surely going to be on the rise in London as well, Jace. And I think that one or two have already started down that road. I know others in the other areas of the world are probably a little ahead of us, but I assume that that's something you've seen as becoming a bit more prevalent.
Yeah, and I think what's been really sort of encouraging for the market and the industry, which is moving rapidly fast and needs to be agile in this, is this new use class E, if you haven't followed planning law in the UK, and E for everything. And actually, historically, retail was the most prescriptive sort of use class for ground floor use up and down the country. And now we can move to showrooms and community space and whole art institutions and food and beverage and other uses, which I think is only going to enhance the offer effectively as well. And, yes, we've seen online brands, haven't they, open physical stores. I think the margins are still far stronger on a physical store, in terms of product. And there's huge costs for online brands and huge costs to ship online products. And that, I think, is obviously, again, a discussion in every boardroom at the moment. How do they match the customer desire, which has been fast-tracked for online in this new world post-COVID, but how do we create the value of the high-touch, high customer service experience in luxury? So I think really, really interesting how that will play out, and how that links to the sustainability agenda. Again, shipping all this product, going around and around, there's things like air quality as well as packaging and product from the physical retail. So yeah, an interesting time as we sort of grapple with some of these sort of more macro issues as well.
And you touched on it, Sonu also touched on the topic of sustainability. So I think let's move on to that topic, which is the third of ours for today. And I think it's widely agreed that sustainability really now forms the foundation pillar of any new business, certainly. 5 years ago, we might say that you wouldn't dream of starting a business without having some sort of digital presence. Tech obviously was very, very much a driver. But now a lot of companies will succeed or fail on their sustainability credentials, and those being part of the corporate governance of a business from the start. So Julia, a discussion around sustainability is often linked with the need to understand the origin of the product and the brand, and you touched on that earlier. Luxury businesses are really, by their definition, rich in heritage and history, and often jump over themselves to showcase how their products are made and sourced. What room is there now for innovation in that respect and sustainability?
Well, it's very important for an industry to innovate and emphasize the sort of heritage and the history at the same time. Shoppers of today, they're not really just spending on recognizable labels. They do want brands that tell a story, are rooted in heritage, and are of such sort of genuine quality that they can be passed down to the next generation. They want the real deal, and they demand that brands stay true to their story. They want to know where, that workers are well treated, that brands are committed to doing all they can to protect the environment, give back to local communities. They want transparency and clarity in the sourcing, the supply chain, and even the sort of corporate behaviour. And they want to know about authenticity and the artisan process. And above all, it's trust where a product was made. They appreciate the manufacturing process, the materials, and they want to know the country of origin. And I think a sort of a British take on thoughtfulness, simplicity, honesty, and a connection to local heritage, local provenance, really helps define the narrative for conscious luxury brands. If you look at Stella McCartney, they can constantly re-accentuate their brand's identity. They provide consumers with responsible, honest, and modern products and services through their contemporary designs and unique stores. The luxury brand, it also sort of highlights the importance of sustainability and environment consciousness, through innovative means and collaborations.
I think innovation there certainly seems to me, and I think you hit upon the point there, that collaboration is just such a key trend that we're seeing. And I think luxury has been a little bit slow sometimes to pick up on that, but it's something that's going to come through more and more, and it will only enhance the sustainability credentials, I think. Sonu, Soneva is obviously built on sustainability, and it really has been weaved into the very fabric of your business. Perhaps could you share with us a little bit more about how you've embraced that and how you've seen innovation in the world of sustainability in the travel industry and Soneva in particular?
Right. Yeah. So it's really been part of our DNA right from day one. As I touched upon, our core purpose is imaginative, engaging, slow life. Slow life is an acronym because we have 40 different nationalities and languages in our resorts. When we were operating Six Senses, it was slightly more. So we wanted a clear purpose that everyone clearly understood. So it stands for sustainable, local, organic, wellness, learning, inspiring, fun experiences. So the first letter is about sustainability. Our journey, it's a bit like the onion, peeling the layers of the onion, our sustainability journey. It started initially with conservation, protecting the turtle and the shark, which were hunted in the Maldives and were endangered, and trying to achieve that and trying to convince the government and people that that live turtle and shark was worth much more in the sea because it could generate much more money for a diver to see rather than the fin could, etc. It looked at conservation in terms of the environment we were in, building around the jungle, varying our architecture so we could build around the trees, the type of wood we used, avoiding tropical rainforests completely, and avoiding any desire for it, even if it's certified, because the problem is tropical rainforest. The tropics are, close to the sun. You find that countries close to the sun have a little bit of corruption in their governments. And so, what is certified, is claimed to be certified is not always. So by using woods and showing that you create a beautiful aesthetic with bamboo and eucalyptus and cedar and pine, sandblasting the cedar, oak, etc. Woods that grow very happily in plantations and are rapid carbon sinks. And of course, energy management was an important early issue. We introduced the first solar panels here back in 2008 in the Maldives, 12 years ago. We're now adding a further 3 megawatts at Soneva Jani, which will mean that 60% of our energy comes from a renewable source. And in our islands, we've been the utility. We generate our power, we desalinate our water, we treat our waste. We got to a stage now over the years of innovation. We created eco-centros, waste to wealth centers. We believe waste is an asset. We recycle 90% of our waste now. So the cardboard and food turns into compost. The branches off the tree we put in a pyrolysis oven turns into charcoal. The biochar goes into make our soils for our salads a bit better and richer. 83% of our non-structural building blocks are made from recycled materials. We ban branded water in our hotels, so no Evian, no Vitel, just water bottled on site. Obviously ecological benefits from that, taking a linear process and making it circular. But we still have the whiskey bottles and the Chateau Yquem or the Chateau Margaux, etc. And so we created a state-of-the-art glass factory there. We decided when we won the equivalent of the Oscars for sustainability in travel and tourism, the first time, we've won it twice now, the World Travel and Tourism Council, which is the government private sector partnership, gave us their Tourism for Tomorrow Award in 2008. So we decided to measure all 3 scopes of carbon. The industry was only measuring scope 1 and 2, which is what happens on site. So we introduced a measurement of scope 3, externalities, goods coming in, supplies coming in, passengers coming in. And we found that 85% of the CO2 as a result of our being was scope 3, which the industry wasn't measuring. So we introduced a mandatory carbon levy, and that's raised about $8 million and has funded 500,000 trees in Thailand, supporting the local community, avoiding soil erosion, a 1.5 megawatt windmill in India, giving subsidized energy to the community there. And after 20 years, when the first one expires, 3 more windmills, and in Darfur in Myanmar, the cook stove. 4 million people die a year of lung asphyxiation, using firewood to heat themselves, purify their water, or cook, and the smoke is causing lung disease. So these stoves avoid the smoke. Half the consumption of firewood, which is relevant in Darfur, where some families are risking the security of their village just to get the wood, and in Myanmar, where some families in the north that we're supporting are spending up to 30% of their income on firewood, so half that. And then a 60% reduction in CO2 emissions. So that was another thing. How do we change the way we do business, which does not affect our profitability, but which could have a great impact well beyond our shores? And I think that's what the water example and the carbon did. So with the water, we found there was a financial saving. So apart from the ecological benefits, we saved 18% of our water revenue. So instead of 20% of water revenues to buy the Evian, it went down to 2%. And that has given 800,000 people access to clean water from the 400 projects we've managed to find. So it was examples where we changed the way we do business. It did not affect our profitability. I think it improved the way guests perceived us and made a big impact. And then there are more things all the time. Every year we're unpacking the onion, and we find a new idea. So today's ones, the new ones are, we have Soneva Namuna, where we've adopted 3 islands to eliminate single-use plastic. We've built eco-centros there for reduce. There are 3 pillars: for recycle, for reduce, which is the other pillar. We've built a water bottling plant like we have on our island, which has avoided in the last 6 months 80,000 plastic bottles. We're now buying more bottles so other islands can do that. And then inspire, because the funny thing in the Maldives, you wouldn't believe it, there's no word for beach. They don't have a word for beach in Devehi. The word for beach, the literal translation, is there where you throw the rubbish. Because all the rubbish was organic before, it was the banana or the coconut. And, but now, of course, it's not. And so the sea has been feared. So teaching children above 7 how to swim, snorkel, surfing, etc. And then pest management, avoiding toxic spraying. We have these traps now where we've reduced the mosquito population by 98% by taking away the spraying. So following the patterns of nature, seeing how I'm observing a mosquito, putting a trap, taking a sachet, opening it where you have a swab that smells of lactic acid like a gym shoe, because that's like human sweat. You put that in there, it lasts for a week. We then use CO2. We create CO2 with baking soda and sugar baking powder and sugar, and we create CO2, and then it seems like a human being. So we were catching 9,000 mosquitoes a day. The reduction has been 98%, which is a world record, and it's an example that can then be rolled out beyond our shores. So and then coral propagation is the next big project, because that's a big challenge for our areas with global warming. But more than just coral gardening, coral propagation, something that would last future El Niños and warmer temperatures. And so we're continuously evolving all the time. It's very much part of something that we're passionate about. It's the passion of Ava and I. Our CFO runs the eco team because that's his passion. He ran an NGO before coming to us after a successful life in the city. Our chief commercial officer is vegan for those reasons. And, you know, even with our diet and our foods, we've reduced our beef consumption by 80%, dairy as well. They're not good for you. They lower your immune system, but they're also not great for the environment. They are the cow is the second biggest contributor to greenhouse gases, as we know, after the built environment, 20% of warming. Yeah. So those are some of the examples, and it's a continuing journey all the time, and we'll continue to push this agenda.
Yeah, and obviously, you know, for Soneva in particular, that's the need to innovate constantly in order to maintain your sustainability drive and keep that going. And I think I was just going to mention, we have a couple of questions in already, but I think perhaps you may there have answered Jodie's question, and she has indeed just confirmed that. So wonderful, thank you. Jace, I think it's a tough one. Your West End Mayfair property is iconic. It's certainly not sustainable in many ways. I'm conscious of time, but I would like to hear a little bit about what those occupiers and owners are doing that is really pushing forward sustainability credentials there.
The first point to say, our entire purpose at New West End is better together for good. And that really is embedded in everything that we do, and embedded in the organizations that we work with, our members and our partners. You know, it's very difficult in the built environment in historic centres like the West End and Mayfair to really get towards that carbon zero position and that path to carbon zero and retrofitting. And there's a trade-off, I think, on design and heritage versus in sustainability and environment, you know, and I think that's a real trade-off that's very live that lots of developers and owners are working through. And then even in the retail, hospitality, hotelier sector, you know, there's a whole breadth of sustainability activity, from supply chain to the workforce to their own carbon footprint. So I think as an organization, we focus on the physical West End and Mayfair and what we can do to improve it. And one area we're focused on is air quality, actually. And we'd like to be a zero emission transport zone by 2025. And that means that every vehicle, whether it's public, private, or deliveries or whatever it is coming into the West End and Mayfair, will be zero emissions. And we do really feel that will be achievable within 5 years. And we know that colleagues working here, customers wanting to visit, that will have a real material impact on their desire to come to the West End and Mayfair. And just to point a really good example, Selfridges, amazing Project Earth, which they launched last month, which I hope colleagues have seen. I mean, utterly inspiring, their approach to this, from Alana Weston right down into the business. They have green warriors at Selfridges. We now have West End green warriors. You know, really, we all want to get to carbon zero and that path through real estate and retail and districts. So, you know, I'm more hopeful. I was really inspired this week that the first hydrogen plane will be available in the market within 15 years. I mean, isn't that a major accomplishment if we achieve that? And what does that do for travel and tourism and business and luxury? So I'm hopeful we'll innovate and find our way through this and reach that target.
Yeah, let's hope so. And as is, you know, that is going to be accelerated even more so, I think, now, and the desire is there. And it's just listening to that, you can see that this isn't necessarily going to be an expense to the business. It can really enhance the profitability of businesses as well as the customer experience as well. I am really conscious of time, but I do want to pose to you all just one last question, if I may, just to bring what we've talked about together, because there's been a lot of crossover in all of those 3 topics we've looked at. So what I'm going to ask is, what in your view is the key piece of innovation that is going to build long-lasting resilience into any business? So perhaps ISO, I can ask Andrea first.
I believe that brands should always really ask themselves, how can one truly achieve long-term resilience if innovation remains an unexplored territory? And I feel that by aligning the online and offline services and having omni-channel business strategies in place, and as well as technology, this will make all the difference in building long-lasting resilience for luxury brands and survive and keep on top of their games.
Sonu, can I ask that of you?
Yes, no, sure. I'll be very quick because I know my last answer was very long. I think a couple of things. I think it's a series of innovations in the experience, and we describe our resorts a bit like a pointless painting. It's a collection of lots of dots that create the overall experience. So I think it's continuous evolution in every single team, and just looking at incremental gains throughout there. I think from a sustainability point of view, I think the progress in solar is incredible, and solar today is cheaper in most parts of the world than the incumbents, even coal, where you have an incumbent coal mine, when you do the real calculations and you avoid the subsidies. I think solar, and that's going to get cheaper and cheaper. The only challenge at the moment we have is storage, and I think storage will be sorted out, but you can move your energy requirement to the day. There are lots of things you can do to just move the timing of your requirement for energy, because the bulk of your energy can be moved, whether it's cooling or desalination of water in our particular case. I think to build on what Andrea said, I think this idea of the online experiences, and for people in our industry who are focused very much on high touch on site, we need to look at canvassing our resources and these incredibly talented people that create the experience, and see how we can generate revenues and experiences beyond our shores for our guests once they go home. And I think people are going to be more open to that. And I think COVID has shown that openness to that. And we've got a few things that are already started, initiatives, whether it's virtual wine tastings with enthusiasts in different parts of the world. We have a whole series every Sunday. There's a top winemaker. We have Chateau Angelus, which is one of the top first grows coming, which is for Christmas, Chateau Palmer and other great wines. For guests who are on property, but also outside. We've yoga lessons remotely, and there's much more we'll be doing there. So I think I agree completely with what Andrea said on that point.
Super. And finally, Jace, your key innovation to build that resilience.
Yeah, it's probably slightly off piece, which is more innovation in taxes, actually, and whether you can have innovation in taxes. But the green agenda, I think about the business rates, which for us in real estate, we talk about, and the fundamental reform required. But actually, wouldn't it be incredible if actually we could move the rates into something about encouraging this path to net zero? And actually those that weren't moving, whether it's in whatever occupiers and in real estate, that actually we could really nudge and change commercial activity based on reaching carbon zero. And actually maybe through the rate system, we could incentivize that journey much quicker. And it would be interesting to think if we can get some innovation in the tax base in this country, given some of the macro challenges we're facing as well. That might be a topic in its own right, I would imagine, a whole panel just on that.
And I think you've just volunteered to help us with that when we arrange it. Thank you, Jace. I have been looking at some of the questions coming in, and I'm going to pose Graham's to the panel because he has posed it to everybody. So here goes. What is the opinion of the panel on the issue of population growth as the elephant in the room, and should those who raise it be vilified, given that in the equation of demand and supply, it is one side of the equation? Has anybody got any thoughts on that? Good question.
I think that if I recently watched The Extinction by David Attenborough. This is a fantastic documentary, and it gives great insight and answers to these questions, and it's a much broader subject that is explained so well within 45 to 60 minutes. So I highly recommend David Attenborough's Extinction movie. It's fantastic.
Super.
Andrea, I'm definitely going to look at that this weekend.
Yes.
Great. Yes, population growth, there is going to be a blip, but as we see, economic activity results in less than two people per family. A couple producing less than two, as we've seen in Italy and a lot of Europe, the population is actually declining. So I think economic prosperity will put a curb on that. It obviously has to happen quicker, and there is this, we're still going up a little bit, and then it will plateau and the population will drop. But you're right, there's another 3 billion coming onto the planet, which is a huge amount for the planet to deal with. But I think focusing on things like that is not possible. You can't control human nature, and we're going against nature by talking about population control. What we should do is we should enhance the forces of nature and work with nature. Janine Banyuls talks about biomimicry, following the patterns of nature. And I think in terms of that idea and that spirit of going with nature, we should look at how we can lower our impact, because that is the biggest problem, is our impact per human being is much too high. And the technology and the ideas and the way forward is here. It's just a question of changing our habits. And that's been quite good about COVID, because we found that with the light bulb, when Edison invented the light bulb, it took about 20 to 30 years before factories introduced electricity into, they were still using steam engines for 20 to 30 years after Edison invented the light bulb. And I think it's the same with sustainability technology. It's there. I talked about solar, how it's much cheaper. There are other ways, waste management, plastic, alternatives to plastic. It's all there. We just need to use it. So I think our focus should be on, instead of trying to see if we can curb the population to 7 billion and not let it get to 10, our focus should be on trying to see how we can reduce the impact on the environment per human being by 10 times, or at least, by half in 5 or 10 years, and then by, by double or treble, down to a third of what it is in 10 years. And I think that's all possible. And I think that's a better way of looking at it, is just to reduce our impact, changing our diets. Plant-based food is, it's very healthy for you, we know. It's obviously great for the environment, and it can be delicious. So at Soneva, we believe in embracing and rather than either or. And I think we can be, with food, for example, healthy and delicious at the same time, and sustainable. And I think that's how we need to look at things, rather than worrying about the population, because there's not much we can do about it. It's beyond our control. It's human nature. Yeah. Super.
Thank you. I'm very conscious of time and the fact that we are probably going to get cut off very soon. I think any of those topics could merit a session on their own. So thank you all. I know you've packed everything that you can into those bite-sized chunks to have the discussion today, and I must thank you all very much for your time. It's been a pleasure to speak to you all. I hope that anybody listening, if you want to go back and visit, the recording can be found. And I'm sure that if there's any burning questions that come out of today, please do send them through to us. I will do my best to put them to the panel and get back to you as well. I'm sure they'll be very happy to do that. So it remains to say many thanks. I hope that was helpful for you all. And I hope to see as many as possible on the 5 o'clock cocktails. And in answer to the question of where is the recording, it will be found on our microsite, which I think has a link to which has been popped at the top of the chat box. So please do go on there and you'll find that, and also some recordings of the other sessions that we've done throughout this week. Hopefully you'll find those interesting. So thank you very much all.